Of course, you're all insiders here, but everyone in Silicon Valley will soon be welcome to come here and take advantage of coming back to normal, because the alternative normal means going back to consumerism and mortality, which isn't a bright prospect. So here at ISKCON, Silicon Valley, we hope to offer a much brighter alternative to birth, death, old age, and disease by taking a little bit of medicine and care in one's life, proper balance of the medicine of the practice of Krishna consciousness, especially chanting Hare Krishna, and also avoiding activities that make one stupider than one already might be. Does that sound fair? Hare Krishna. So let's start off today and welcome everybody who's joined us on Zoom. We remember the Zoom, right, everybody? And we're happy to continue with both alternatives as we go forward, because after all, Sanjaya was on Zoom when he spoke to Dhritarashtra. He wasn't there on the battlefield. And the main lesson we've learned is that the vibration can continue through technology. We knew that before, but we relied on it specifically during the time when we couldn't move about physically. But there is a nice component to being together, isn't it? Yes. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Nirkula. So great to see you all. And I want to make a special mention to those who are making garlands here at ISV. There's so much devotion going into this service. The devotees are dedicating their lives to making more and more beautiful arrangements for Krishna, and the way that they're making the garlands. They are meditating on it. They're studying the science. And every time I come here, it's increased quality and beauty. And the main opulence of deity worship is the flowers. And the main opulence of the flower offerings are the garlands. So I thank all the garland makers. Hare Krishna. Garland makers don't have to change anything at the time of death. They just come out in the spiritual world doing their same service. Because there's no earthly reason to make so many garlands. People wear ties, but it's not the same thing. It's sort of a symbol of being a kept servant at some place to wear a tie. But a garland means you're free to move about the universe and go back to Godhead. It's a statement of being a member of the spiritual world, don't you think? Either that or you're from Hawaii. But other than that, nobody else wears garlands. I always wear them when I travel. Whatever temple I'm leaving, I keep whatever garland I'm lucky enough to get. And I wear it through the airport with the idea that the first person who asks me who it is gets it. If they say, oh, that's really beautiful, where'd you get it? I was like, this is for you. And it's a new life's experience for them, because in the material world, you don't get flowers. If you live in the suburbs, you get maybe some grass that grows on the ground. Somebody comes in, very aggressively mows it once a week, and then blows dust all over the place. Well, look at that. See? And from Brajabalava at that. Thank you, Prabhu. I'm deeply touched. This is beautiful. But not many flowers that you can use in the suburbs, right? Unless the devotees think of how to grow flowers that are fragrant and abundant so they can offer them to Krishna. Otherwise, if you don't have somebody to offer flowers to, it's not worth the trouble. You know, they just come out on the bushes and then they drop, and then you have to clean them up again, and people really don't take time to smell the flowers. In fact, there's an admonition that you should take time to stop and smell the roses. During the beginning of the pandemic, I saw somebody with a rose garden outside their house, and they had put some chairs out there and a sign that says, "Stop it, take time to stop and smell the roses." But there's not much time. I can't tell if anybody's smiling or not, so I'm just going to keep going on. So if none of this resonates, I'll have no idea anyway. But if we have a place to offer everything, especially flowers, then life becomes a festival because of that. In the Gita, Krishna says, "Yat koroshi yadashna shiyat johosi dadasiyat." Whatever you do, whatever you offer, do as an offering to me. But then he gets more specific and he says, "Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya prayachati." Offer me a leaf of flower, fruit, or water. Those are easily gotten, but those who are devotees think about how to get the nicest flowers in the universe and offer them to Krishna. And by that simple act of just recognizing that the flower is given to us to offer to Krishna, and then making a simple offering, there's a very touching experience that the devotee experiences within the heart. So I can only imagine what the garland makers are feeling when they're sitting in that room or wherever they are together and just meditating on making these garlands. It's something very special. Thank you. Ananta, welcome back. I'm so glad to see you. Hare Krishna. We're going to start with some Kirtan, and just after that we can have a discussion, and then chanting, dancing, and fasting till death, just like in the Bhagavatam. Gaur Premanande Haribo Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Radhara Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Tai Gaur Haribo. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Nitai Gaura Premanande, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Shri Harinam Mahamantra Ki, Shri Harinam Prabhu Ki, Gaura Premanande. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Better if I have a Bhagavad Gita. I start getting nervous with that one. Hare Krishna. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It's a prayer to my spiritual master out of gratitude for opening my eyes from the complete darkness of ignorance with the torchlight of knowledge she did through the Bhagavad Gita. And I offer my respectful obeisances to all the previous acharyas whose only business is to see to it that everyone in the material world gets an opportunity to be recruited. They're agents who come here to recruit. So it's good if you're up to speed when they come recruiting so they can take you on the team back to the spiritual world where people know how to play correctly, play nicely. And I offer my respectful obeisance to all of you. Thank you very much for walking the earth, being Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis, and doing good for all the people of the world. Such an honor to be in your presence. Hare Krishna. And the process of Krishna consciousness is constantly being adjusted by the great teachers in order that it can be introduced into the world. There's a conversation in the Srimad Bhagavatam. May I have one Srimad Bhagavatam also, please? Srimad Bhagavatam is complete in 12 cantos. The 10th canto, considering that the entire Bhagavatam is the body of Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishvara Parama Krishna, Sakchirananda Vigraha, Anadi Radhir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. He's the Supreme Controller. He's the original. Everything else emanates from him. And his representative in this world is the Srimad Bhagavatam. In fact, it's described how the Srimad Bhagavatam is an incarnation of Krishna in sound. Krishna swadamo pagate dharma ganadi bisaha kalu nashta drishamesha purar narko donodita. In the Kali Yuga, just after Krishna leaves, at the end of Dvapara Yuga, the last section of time in which Krishna was here, and the Kali Yuga begins as soon as he leaves. Kali Yuga is an age sort of like winter in this cycle of spring, summer, fall, winter. And Krishna's here showing his pastimes and teaching. Krishna meets with his devotees and gives instructions, and he also has his leela or pastimes for everyone to see. He lifts Govardhan Hill as an example, and this is something other people can't do. He also has interactions with many different kinds of living entities. Some of them are conditioned souls, and some of them are against him. Some of them are longtime devotees or eternal associates who come here to assist him in his pastimes. But he does good to everyone that he meets because Krishna is all good. And when he leaves the world, you can imagine how desperate the devotees must feel. And you don't have to imagine, you can read about it in the Srimad Bhagavatam. For instance, Uddhava was with Krishna just before he left and heard his final instructions. And you can read those also in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Am I getting an echo over here? Sounds like I'm hearing myself. And when Krishna disappears from our vision, then the verse I just quoted says that he appears simultaneously as the Srimad Bhagavatam. Krishne swadamo pakate dharma ganadi bisaha. And that's the way in which the highest spiritual principles will be maintained. The Dharma will be maintained. It will be derived from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So we can imagine how important of a literature the Srimad Bhagavatam is. That it is Krishna himself, and it's here to give light to people in the Kali Yuga who are bewildered, because in this age it's very difficult to find any place to go where there's a spiritual vibration. And therefore, it was predicted by the sages. You'll notice at the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, they're having a conversation with the great teacher of Shukadev Sutta Goswami. And they comment to Sutta Goswami that in this age, Prayinal Payusha Shabya, Kalavazimin Yugajana, Manda Sumanda Matayo, Manda Bhagya Hipatrita, that people will be short-lived. There are many mitigating circumstances for living a long life in this age. And then said that people also be quarrelsome. Have you noticed that to be true? There's always something to argue about. And then they'll be lazy, especially lazy about spiritual life, and misguided, and above all, always disturbed. And sumanna matayo means they have really bad ideas about how to conduct themselves in the world. So the point was, at that conference, just like this one, only it was out in the forest in Naimisharanya, was to discern what's the point of life and what's the highest principle of life to live by, and how can one attain the perfection of life, even amidst this Kali Yuga. And the answer is that the Srimad Bhagavatam is there to instruct us how to achieve the perfection of life. So let's talk just a little bit about that. What is it about the Srimad Bhagavatam that's special? It's even special beyond the Bhagavad Gita, because we find in the 5th chapter of the Bhagavatam, is everyone okay so far? Okay. Oh, good. Okay, so we find in the Bhagavatam 5th chapter, this is the very opening of the book in the 1st canto, there's a conversation between Narada, the sage, and Vedavyas, the one who compiles all the Vedas and makes them available to the world through his various disciples. They branch out, they divide the one Veda into several, and then they become the teachers of that, and they spread it out through their disciples, and through their discipleship it spreads throughout the world. At some point it gets written down and passed on to everyone, even in this age, which is remarkable. We have it available to us via the disciplic succession and the hard work of our founder, Srila Prabhupada, who made sure that it got here to America, which is a big deal. We might not have had it even right now. What to speak of in other countries? They have one in Czechoslovakia. They have one in Russian. It's in Mandarin. There are many languages around the world. He saw to it that it got distributed. However, in this 5th chapter of the Bhagavatam, 1st canto, you'll find that Narada Muni chastises. Can you look up the word? It's a heavy word. He chastises his disciple. Who's his disciple? Srila Vyasadeva. Srila Vyasadeva is known as an incarnation of Krishna, but he has a guru. Everyone has a guru, including Krishna. And Srila Vyasadeva, even after writing the Mahabharata, which has the Bhagavad Gita in it, and all the other Puranas, is not feeling satisfied in his service. So he inquires from his spiritual master, who then chastises him, and the chastisement means, please. Either that's a thick mask or your microphone's not on, or both. There it is.
Chastise is to inflict pain upon, to punish and recall to duty, or to punish for the purpose of correcting or reclaiming. It comes from the 1300s from chastisement, from Old French, chastir, to warn, advise, instruct, chastise, admonish, punish, dominate, and tame. And it comes from Latin castigare, which means to set or keep right, to reprove or to punish. And it literally means to make pure, which is castigate.
Wow, to make pure. That's good. Good lesson in that. And there's a lesson in this chapter also. If Srila Vyasadeva was an incarnation of God and can write all the Vedas can take chastisement, how much we should be ready, right? Be open to being instructed and corrected and all the other things that Vrinda just reminded us chastisement means. So the guru, Narada, comes and chastises his disciple, and he says, you've given religious principles. You know about this thing, religious, spiritual but not religious? Have you heard that one? I'm spiritual but not religious. Well, he says, you've given all these principles of religion, but they're basically concessions so that you can live in the world in a way that you don't get overwhelmed by karma and dragged down. But he said, did Narada, that people are going to take this as an excuse to stay in the material world because, have you ever heard this? If you give an inch, he takes a mile. And there's a way in which, if there's any concession there that you can enjoy the material world, you just have to do it under regulation. Then everyone will say what? Yahoo! That means we get to stay in the material world and enjoy. And this is the disease of a conditioned soul, is to think that there's some happiness in this world and just to go back to sleep again. Has anybody ever done that? When the alarm goes off and then you miss it, miss the opportunity. So he said, you have to tell them more than just how to live in the world without becoming wholly corrupted, or even knowing the self, or even working without fruitive results. He says in his instruction, Naishkarmyam apyachuta bhava varjitam, nashobate jnanam alam niranjanam, kutakmuna shashvata bhadram ishvare, nacharpitam karma yarap yakaranam. He said, even if you teach people how to work in the world without creating karma, naishkarmyam, you can work but not get entangled. And even you understand self-realization, atma tattva gyan. I know that I'm not the body, I'm the self. That's there in the Bhagavad Gita quite clearly, isn't it? And if you tell them all these things, you teach them all these things, he said, even that's not very beautiful. Nashobate jnanam alam niranjanam. You teach them niranjanam, how to work in the world without creating fruitive results. All these things, it's nashobate. It doesn't stir the soul. It doesn't attract our attention, really. It just gives us yet another way to compromise. Compromise on what? On our ultimate good, which is to embrace the aesthetic beauty of the spiritual world, starting with recognizing our eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Practically speaking, the words I just said, the last sentence, is taboo here in this world. If you go to any university in America and you say, there is a God and he's a person and he's beautiful, and you make flower garlands in the spiritual world, people will be aghast and immediately start preparing your exit from the university. This is the proclivity in the material world, is to avoid the subject as much as possible. So this is what Narada, the subject of our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Narada is saying, you've given the people an opportunity to do this. So he said, you have to go back and teach people what the ultimate goal of life is. And the chastisement, jugupsitam karma krite, he said, karma krite, you've given something that's abominable. Can you imagine that? After writing all these amazing literatures, and he said, these are abominable. Because you've given people a chance. Mahan vitikrama, he said, you've made a big mistake. Big mistake. Mahan vitikrama, you really blew it, he says. And so what's missing? What's missing is, he says, is the essence of all the teachings of the Vedas, which is to know the beauty of the spiritual world, the personality of Godhead, and our relationship with Him. And specifically describing Krishna in the spiritual world in relationship with his devotees. That you haven't told. And he said, it's so important. Tyaktva sadharmam charanam bhujan harer bhajanu pakvo ta tatet pato yadi yatarkva babajram abud amushakim kovarta apto bhajatam sudharmata. He said, if people forego all the other religious principles that you've taught throughout the whole, all the Vedas and the Puranas, and they try for this understanding of the spiritual world, they get just a tiny drop of nectar from the spiritual world of Krishna's pastimes with his devotees. And they try for it, but they don't make it. But they gave up everything else. There's no loss. Whereas if they get everything else right in this world, let's just say you get everything lined up. What are some ways to get all lined up in this world? Just name 3. Money? Okay, let's say you got a lot of money. How much is a lot of money these days? Do you have to have $1 billion now? Is that what it is? It's $1 billion, right? Here in Silicon Valley, it's like, I don't think I can live without $1 billion. And then what else is there after that? Fame? Okay. Can you be more specific about ways to get lined up? Huh? I know these are very general terms. Like, tell me more specific. You got to be a resident. President? Jeez. I don't know who'd want that job, you know. I'm thinking more like, you know, you get, what, education? You can. How do you get lined up in education? What do you have to get these days? PhD. Master's, not just Stanford, I don't know, it's not good enough. Okay, you get your education, what else? You get a house. You got to get a house to be part of the American dream. You get what else? You get a car. You got to get a nice car. It's not a Toyota. It's got to be a little better. Huh? Spouse, got to be a good spouse, yeah. Definitely a spouse. You know, people save up their whole life to have a wedding and then, you know, everything there. And what'd you say? Was there one more? These are ideas to get lined up in the material world. And let's just say you live a very religious life, a very pious life. He said that this isn't good enough. In fact, even if you get all that, but you miss that endeavor to know Krishna and to surrender to Krishna, to give your heart to Krishna, he said, then you didn't get anything. You know, when you're leaving the world and that was my house, but I don't get to take anything with me. You don't take the degree. You don't take the spouse. You leave the pet rock. Is that what you said? The what? You leave your Tesla behind. Everything gets left behind. And he said, Tyakva sadharmam charanam bhujam harer. Even if you give up all that stuff and you try for devotional service, as presented in the Srimad Bhagavatam, pure devotional service, and you blow it and everyone says, you're a terrible devotee and you didn't get there, you didn't make much advancement. Narada says, so what? You didn't miss anything. You gave up everything else, but you got the devotional service. He said that you won. That it's so valuable that even if you got a little bit, or even if you didn't get anything, but you tried for it, you jumped for the bar and you missed, you still get forward progress. Like he went for it. It counts. Krishna says something similar in the Bhagavad Gita, Neha Bikramana Shosti. Swalpam apyasya dharmasya. Even if you get a little bit of this, it makes up for everything else. That's what you want, that thing. That if you get a small amount, it makes up for everything else. So he tells them all this, and he says, go back and realize this, and make it available to the world after you realized it. And so Srila Vyasadeva goes back into his cottage, which is a place that is not affected. It's Samyaprash. It's a little cottage surrounded by berry trees. That's why I like berries so much. And there's no influence of the modes of material nature. And he went into deep samadhi, full absorption, meditation, and was able, through revelation, to envision the pastimes of Krishna in Vrindavan, in the spiritual world. And he brought that back. Instead of being just Bhagavat Purana, he brought back Srimad Bhagavatam. Now, how do we get that thing? How do you get that essential point? That one drop of the one drop of which will fulfill all your desires, as is advertised in the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, right? Where is it advertised? Nigama kalpataro galitam palam, shukamukadam rita drava samyutam. Says there's all this knowledge, but what's the business of a tree, actually? The main business of a tree, ultimately? Ask her. What's a tree's main business, would you say? Whoa, she knows. She said to give a fruit. See, if you live in a house where they're reading and distributing Srimad Bhagavatam, you know everything. Trees exist to make a fruit. And so the Srimad Bhagavatam is that fruit. Nigama kalpataro galitam palam. Out of all the nigamas and agamas, all the different branches of knowledge, there's a purpose for branches and trunks and all the barks and the bark and the roots of the tree, and that is to produce a fruit. See, nigama kalpataro galitam palam, shukamukadam rita dravasamhitam. And how does it come out to the world? Through Shukadeva Goswami. That's an interesting aspect of the Srimad Bhagavatam. How did it come out from Shukadeva Goswami? Well, Parikshit Maharaj, king of the world, got cursed by a little boy who was playing around and then felt insulted that his father was insulted. And therefore he uttered a curse against the king, the emperor, and said he should die in 7 days. And the king, when hearing this curse, he'd never heard anything like that. And so he's a perfect person. He's a Raja Rishi. But it was an aberration that this Brahmin boy uttered a curse. And it was an aberration that he had induced the boy's anger by insulting somebody, because he'd never do that. But it just happened that he insulted the sage who was sitting there meditating and who didn't greet him. So, after being cursed, he gave up his kingdom. He sat down on the Jamuna, and then an assemblage of people, each representing a branch of knowledge of the Vedic literatures, came there. There was Gyanis, yogis, tapasvis, those who lived to give charity, You can imagine thousands. The many different aspects of the Vedas teach many different things. That's why it's compared to a tree with many different branches. It's hard to figure out which one to take. And so each was giving their advice, and he said, well, why don't you all agree amongst yourselves and then bring me one idea, rather than everyone giving their individual idea. And just at that time, Shukadeva Goswami appeared. Now, keep in mind that at this point, there were sages there that were some thousands of years old, some hundreds of years. They had long beards. And they were venerable and learned in their own fields beyond what we could even imagine how learned they were, and suggesting various paths for him. Now, how is it that Shukadeva, who appeared on the scene 16 years old, came into the assemblage and everyone stood up and recognized him? Well, he had some qualifications. One was he was the son of Vyasadeva. The other was he never touched the material world, ever. In fact, when he was in the womb, Shukadeva Goswami, the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam, had refused to come out into the world because he said, I want nothing to do with it. And he wouldn't come out for quite some time. Krishna had to personally come and tell him in the womb, come out, you'll be all right. He didn't take any chances. When he did come out, he took off from his homestead. Even with Srila Vyasadeva calling after him, please come back, at least take a sacred thread. But Shukadeva wanted nothing of it. He turned his back and walked away into the forest, fully absorbed in the vastness of God's energies, without a clear conception of the personality of Godhead. Srila Vyasadeva sent out his disciples into the forest to speak some of the verses of the Srimad Bhagavatam. And when Shukadeva heard them, Nirgrantha apyarukrame, the Bhagavatam says, what he heard was not from an ordinary book. Nirgrantha, it wasn't a book about religion, it wasn't a book about anything of this world. It was from the spiritual world. And because Shukadeva Goswami had nothing to do with this world, it's remarkable that he was attracted to it. Because every living entity, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, nahi kashit shanamapi jatu tishyatya karma krit, karyate hyavasha karma sarva prakriti jargunai, has something to do and somewhere to go. Do you ever notice that about yourselves? Even if you go to sleep at night, you got someplace to go. As soon as you drop off, and then all of a sudden you're getting in a car and you're driving around, going to work, and you're doing something. And when you wake up, everyone's like, let's go, come on. And if you take a management position, then 24 hours a day, people are calling you and saying, like, hey, you got to do this now and got to do that. We got to have a million meetings, right? And so the living entity is always doing something in this material world. Even if someone becomes a nihilist and said, there is no meaning to life, it's all zero, you have to go around and propagate that too. And that takes a lot of work. Every living entity is active always. So one who had withdrawn completely from all the variety of the world, such as Shukadeva Goswami did, then was attracted to the sound vibration of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So attracted that he came back to his family and to Srila Vyasadeva to hear that vibration more and more and to imbibe it. And then Shukadeva went out to give mercy to others. He had no other purpose. He didn't have to go to work. He didn't have any clothes to buy. When you don't have to wear clothes, you don't have to work. Did you know that? And even if you did, they probably wouldn't hire you. This is the emblem of his detachment from the world. He had no clothes on. He didn't care about the latest hairstyle. And he didn't have to keep up on who was wearing what. Are pants tight now or are they loose? He just went out in the world and his heart was filled with compassion for other living beings. Karunaya. Karunaya, that was his purpose, is to give mercy. So he happened, by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to wander into the assembly where Parikshit Maharaj happened to be sitting at that time. What a coincidence. Do you call that? Serendipity. It's the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is how spiritual life works. As mentioned by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Brahmanda Brahmate Kon, Bhagyavan Jeev, Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai, Bhakti Lata Bij. If you're sincere and you want to know the truth, you want to know who is God, you don't have to go very far, because he'll find you and he'll intersect you with a teacher, an agent who's out recruiting. Krishna sends his agents to this world to recruit. So make sure you are looking good when the recruiter comes. So Shukadeva Goswami walked in and everybody stood up, because from his physiognomy and his reputation, everybody knew this is the teacher. And they offered them the seat of esteem in front of everyone. And what is the question that Parikshit Maharaj asks? So what is the duty of every person, especially at the time of death? And that's the answer that's given is the Srimad Bhagavatam. And if you offer to somebody to say, I don't have time, you don't have time not to read this book. I'm not interested. That's because you're in illusion. You don't realize that at any moment, Kamala Dalajala, Jivana Talamala, at any moment, just like water on a lotus leaf, you can slide off and be lost, lose the opportunity, the greatest opportunity that's before you now as in a human life. And you don't know where you're going or what's going to happen next. So it's of the utmost importance. So Shukadeva Goswami then goes on to teach Parikshit Maharaj through 9 cantos how the material world works. And he takes us through every psychological situation. You've all read the Bhagavatam, right? Completely. Every section. Please say yes. Okay, then we have Bhagavatams for you outside if you haven't. There's a table out there. By the way, we have a goal to distribute at least 2,000 sets of Srimad Bhagavatam by September 20th. That's more than we've ever done before. So lean in. So Shukadeva Goswami in 9 cantos describes every opportunity someone might have in this world to try to find happiness, and shows how it won't work. And by the time any person in Silicon Valley reads the first 9 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam, comes to this point, he or she will have a firm conviction that there's nothing for me in this material world, and that it's basically kind of a waste of time. I know there's a family show, Family Hour, Sunday, but I'm just telling what's in the Bhagavatam. And so then the 10th canto comes, and he tells something extraordinary that no one has ever heard of before. You're not going to hear it in the biology class. Biology class, they cut stuff open and say, like, is the absolute truth in this cat? Did you have to cut open a cat? They give you a cat? A what? A pig. They give you a pig or a cat or a frog and say, you cut this open and maybe you'll find out the truth in life. Or if you're in geology, you get a little rock hammer and you tap on the rock until it breaks, and you look in and say, let's see if we can figure out from the striations where we came from. There's no information that's useful to us in fossils, ultimately. They don't have any knowledge. They don't have any consciousness. What's helpful to us comes from conscious entities, and the supreme conscious entity is Krishna, and he passes down the information through his agents. And it comes to the world through Shukadeva Goswami, and it's available, all the answers from the fully conscious spiritual world in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, the 10th canto, it's about the spiritual world and Krishna's relationship with his devotees there. Why is this particularly important? Because unless I can get attracted to what's going on in the spiritual world, there is absolutely no possibility whatsoever of getting out of the material world. Now, if that doesn't fill you with fear, thinking like, oh my God, how am I going to get out of here? Or if you think, I'm not worried about it, I can hang around the material world as long as I like, then you can cover your ears for the rest of the talk or the next 5 minutes. But if you even have a scintilla, you can look that one up, of a desire to get out of the material world and attain spiritual success, then the next part is for you. Anyone? Okay. The material world is ruled, according to Sigmund Freud, by eros. That is erotic love. I know it's a family show. I'm just telling the truth. Everyone's attracted to sensual happiness in this material world, to which, in a very basic way and conclusive way, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yehi samsparshaja bhoga dukkha yonaya evate adyantavanta konteya nateshu ramate buddha. Intelligent people don't fall for it. The sensual pleasure in this material world, the topmost of which is eros, the idea of erotic love in this material world, because they understand it has a beginning and an end, and also by my involvement in it, I'm going to come out worse off than when I went in. Now, if somebody tells you, I'm going to give you $1 million, that's not enough, $1 billion, and you can take it, and I'll give you all the, what was the other things? The degrees, cars, house, money, food, whatever. Only thing is, tomorrow I'm going to come back with some really big people, and we're going to take it back from you, and we're going to beat you up. Would you take it? No. So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, don't fall for it, the material world. But what do we do then? Because I'm still attracted to the material world. Inexplicably, I can't give it up. Have you ever noticed that? Please say yes. I feel really bad being all alone over here. Fact is, the material world is attractive because there's variety here. We like variety. We like people. We like beauty. And being attracted to beauty is not something you have to learn. You just come out into the world, and next thing you know, you're entangled because you're looking around. You want to taste everything, see everything, and especially males and females want to associate together. And you just get into the cycle, and next thing you know, you've used up one life, and you say, yeah, we had a good run, but then you have to start over again. How are you going to get out of that situation? Any ideas? Krishna? Okay. And that's the topic of the Srimad Bhagavatam. What is it about Krishna? The love we see in this world, the sensual enjoyment we see in this world is a fake out. That's a fact. I guarantee it. But there is sensual enjoyment somewhere else. There is a soap opera going on somewhere that you don't have to turn off and that the people don't get old in. People love soap operas. But, you know, if you look at the stars of yesteryear, you'll see like they got old and or died or whatever. But in the spiritual world, that all the senses, you have to engage all of them. Touching, smelling, seeing, loving. What else is there? Hearing, tasting. Do they have that in the spiritual world? That's where it comes from. Who do you think thought of it all? It's just a reflection here in the material world. So when you come to the 10th canto, you find out exactly how the hearing, the touching, the smelling, the loving, everything goes on. And because it's not an ordinary vibration, it's mentioned by Shukadev, Vrikreditam Rajavadubri Rahamcha Vishnu Shadhanvito Nashinuyad Atavarnayadya Bhaktim Param Bhagavate Pratilabhyakama Vridrogam Ashva Pahinot Yacharinadhira. If you hear this vibration of the 10th canto, the way that Krishna has loving exchanges, lila, with his devotees in the spiritual world, said, then you can rise above kama, the dread disease of lust within the heart that keeps us here in the material world. And you can go back home, back to Godhead. Does that sound like a good idea? Say yes. Yes. So the Srimad Bhagavatam is not just another book. It is absolutely necessary for those who want to attain perfection in spiritual life. Minus the Bhagavatam, whatever kind of success we attain in this world will be lost. We'll fall back down again into a lower position due to not having standing in the spiritual world. But we can get a standing in the spiritual world by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Last point. How do you get it? How do you get that hunger? Or how do you get, back up one step, how do you even get that substance or the connection with the Bhagavatam in the first place? Because Bhagavatam's here on the planet, but maybe I don't have it. Maybe I haven't even read it yet after I just said all those things. And if everything I just said is true, somebody should get me a Bhagavatam right now. I have one here. I feel nervous without it. So, one of the great teachers of Srimad Bhagavatam, Rupa Goswami, gives the formula for spiritual life. This is the only formula you need to have success in spiritual life. But we've run out of time, so I can't express it. And maybe if you come back next week, we can talk about it. Is that all right? You're not fighting that hard. Come on. All right. Thank you, Hansapriya. Okay, so Rupa Goswami was a disciple of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He gave a verse that you can go back to again and again if you want to understand what's wrong with my life. How do I get advanced in spiritual life to the point where I can actually enjoy life in devotional service? And he says, Krishna ras bhavitomati, Krishna bhakti ras bhavitomati. And by the way, the first line of this, Prabhupada said, this is where the word Krishna consciousness comes from, he said. Krishna bhakti ras bhavitomati kriyatam yari kritopi labdate. Tatalolyam apimulyam ekalam janma koti sukritirna labhyate. First, the bad news. You can't get bhakti ras, or this taste, the sensual experience that we're all hankering for, by doing pious activities. You can open hospitals, you can feed people, you can give money in charity. It's nice, very nice. But you can't get bhakti from that. There's one price to pay, and that price is your eagerness. And so enthusiasm for it. It's like, I want that more than anything else. That's good enthusiasm. And someone might say then, oh, I have such enthusiasm. I said, not so easy. Such enthusiasm you can't get after thousands and thousands of births. The verse says. How do you get it? By associating with people who have it. And that's why the association of devotees is so important. If one can get even one molecule of enthusiasm that I want this, what the Srimad Bhagavatam is offering, then you're the most fortunate person in the world. And finally, Rupa Goswami says, if it's available, if this is true, and it's available, he didn't say if it's true, I'm just framing it like that. It is true. If it's available, you should run and get it as soon as possible. Don't wait. Don't think I'll do it later, I'll do it after this. Confirmed. That's Prabhu. Who is that? That's Radhanath Maharaj? Oh. See? And he just sent us a note too. Everyone should read Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you. So we have the rarest of rare opportunities, and that is to enter into the spiritual world in this lifetime. And the process for getting there is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of advanced devotees. And the price to pay is one's eagerness to get it. And one should run, don't walk. Now we'll take a few reflections or questions to amplify the conversation. Are you ready? There's some online. Are they from yesterday? Or from today? Today. Give the today ones, the yesterday ones I'll do later. He said yesterday also. I just wanted to be on the same topic if possible. The flower we used to make in the garlands is in the spirit soul then born as a human? Probably. And Ruby Mataji Haribo says, enjoying today's class, when would Wednesday class also be open in person? She has that utsahan. Very soon. Haribo. Krishna willing. Happy Father's Day. Thank you. Questions? Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for reigniting the urgency. Symbolically, this is very important for us. Officially, our first sit-down lecture in 15 months or so. And during this period, as Bali Prabhu mentioned yesterday, kind of that we have missed it. We have taken so many things for granted. And a person like me, who've been in this movement for a few years, and yes, I'll do it. But that urgency or sincerity just does not go beyond a certain level. And although apparently we do the same things, or at least try to do the same things, sitting at our homes. And of course, something is better than nothing, but nothing beats our presence in front of Radha Madan Mohanji and you. So just wanted to acknowledge and our gratitude to you and everyone, and feeling privileged that we are just sitting here after 15 months. Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Igualmente.
I wanted to repeat whatever Prabhu said. Same thing. It's so different. When I was coming, I was thinking, well, I'll be able to sit for the one and because we lost the habit. At home, even if I'm concentrating, there is a tendency to multitask because there are other things which come. There's a browser which your email shows up, and this is like And I was thinking, I didn't eat, I didn't drink water, so maybe I'll be able to survive through the class. But it's fine. I feel even better than what I felt, after eating.
That's what Parikshit says. When the Bhagavatam starts, he says, Naishat ta dushaha shunman tyaktodam apipadate pibantan tan mokam boja chutam harikatamritam. And by the way, please turn your phones on, because if your phone goes off in the class, in the temple room, you have to purchase one Srimad Bhagavatam set. Okay? Say yes. Okay. So he says, normally, it would be very difficult for someone to sit here without sleeping, eating, or drinking water. He said, but I'm not feeling any discomfort whatsoever, because chutam harikatamritam, chutam means falling, chutam harikata, because harikata is falling from your mouth, Shukadeva Goswami, and therefore I'm enjoying. And this is the secret to spiritual life. If one can come to this position of being enraptured by the sound of the Krishna book, of the Nectar Devotion, of the Srimad Bhagavatam, of Bhagavad Gita, then, and Chaitanya Charitamrita, these 5 books, then this is actual spiritual advancement. And you can transfer yourself from this world to the spiritual world by this process. It's a culture. You're doing that. You've been doing it since the beginning, and you're doing it now. And you have a taste for it. You're always in the front row. So this is the process. you have to make a circle. You have to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. Whomever you associate with, whatever you listen to, that culture is going right into your heart. And when you speak, it's going to come out. You'll speak, and what comes out is going to be either CNN News, which is nothing you can do anything about. It's compared by Shukadeva Goswami at the beginning of the Bhagavatam, second canto, when he's talking about the world, and to Parikshit, it's like, don't worry about giving this place up. It's basically the croaking of frogs. When you get a large assembly of frogs, it's quite tumultuous, right? What are they saying? If you translate, Google Translate. It's about eating, sleeping, mating, defending. It has nothing to do with the spiritual world. And so all the cacophony that comes from the material world of all the people talking all at the same time from every different country, even so-called noble causes like the United Nations, because it doesn't have Harikatha, it's intolerable for somebody who's used to hearing Krishna Katha. If you know the beauty of hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam in the assembly of devotees, you can't tolerate the other sound vibration. And if you listen to their sound vibration with an open heart, like, let me take this in, it's for some kind of enjoyment or even, well, anyway, I'll leave it at that. Then it stays in there and it comes out in our lives and it manifests in our lives. So the secret to spiritual life is there for anyone to discover. It's by hearing in the association of devotees.
I also wanted to talk about the garland makers because you began the class with that. So when Ruby Mataji's comment came, so whenever I see her, I always think, she should put in LinkedIn, official garland maker of Radha Madan Mohan, and she's been doing it for so long. So that's her a designation.
Well, let's do that.
Earned.
Let's put in garland makers. See how they. And when if she's ever traveling and going across, and you have to put your disembarkation card, it says occupation. Just put garland maker. No one will reject a garland maker. It's coming into the country. What do you do? I make flower garlands for Krishna. It's like, okay, you can come in. Yes, bravo. Yes.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So nice to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, glories of Srimad Bhagavatam, and I think it just feels like an Naimisharanya, you glorifying our Amal Purana and all these devotees coming. It's just, I can just see that how hungry the devotees were even at that time and even now. The purity of the Bhagavatam is so important that it connects us with something that really matters to us in our life. So first of all, I want to thank you for that. And I was just thinking, there are many devotees now we saw yesterday and some today, and we've been in contact with them constantly from last 1 week because they're enthusiastic to come to temple. And I hear from a lot of them, and one common question is that we missed our service and we want to serve. So how we can take this on for not just because I can speak and I can distribute, but how everyone can become part of this to distribute these glories or the love that we are relishing with someone else. Could you please say on that?
She likes to throw like an underhand pitch so I can hit it. So our organization, especially here at ISKCON of Silicon Valley, is based on the principle of distributing knowledge to as many people as possible. This is a legitimate, not just a legitimate way, it's the only way in which one can affect systemic change in a society or in the world, is to distribute knowledge that will give people their bearings in life and the practical ways in which to achieve the spiritual goal in life. And therefore, as Prabhupada based his whole entire movement on the distribution of transcendental literature, we too here at ISKCON of Silicon Valley have based our mission on distributing books. Of course, we do other things because it's a holistic process. And it's not that we just sell books and nothing else. We have to be fully absorbed in them ourselves. And we also have to enact the instructions that are in the books, like performing the 9 different processes of devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering, praying, and so on. So one of the ways in which devotees can make a mark in the world, I mean, you're here in Silicon Valley, you really want to make a mark in the world, right? Otherwise you wouldn't tolerate the high prices here and everything. You just move to some little swamp town somewhere and just be content, right? Yes? So you're paying a high price to be here so you can make a mark in the world, correct? Yes. So, yes. So, hey, nothing against all the other towns in the world. I just, but Silicon Valley's stage of the world, people come here to make their mark. Otherwise, might as well move to the hills. So, how do you do that? Take a stand for Krishna and make his main book available to the world. Did America see a change, or did the colonies change into America overnight? Yes. How? Because of a book. It was distributed. I read it. It's fantastic. It's an amazing book, written by Thomas Paine. Common Sense. You should read it. It's an example of really good writing. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is not just really good writing. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin prati shlokam abhadyavatyapi. It's not from this world. It's so sublime and pure. It's from another world. It's from the spiritual world. And if anybody hears it, they'll be transformed and taken back home, back to Godhead by doing it. So this service that everyone can get involved in is going towards this next goal of distributing at least 2,000 Srimad Bhagavatam sets by September 20th at midnight. That's the goal. That's the cutoff point. And we have about 1,999 to go from today. Right, Malini? And so that's a big opportunity. You can invest your time and energy and Lakshmi, money, in Bhagavatams and help distribute them. Hanspriya? How was my answer? At least a base hit. Okay. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj.
Hare
So I really liked how you mentioned that in the Srimad Bhagavatam there's a collection of stories that emphasize that you cannot find any happiness no matter how hard you try. There is no way to find any happiness in this world. And that really struck me because I feel like everywhere else they're trying to prove to us that we can find happiness through ads, through all social media. Everyone is trying to prove to us that you can find happiness by buying this thing or doing this thing. So it was just a really nice reminder for me to delve deeper into Srimad Bhagavatam and really be familiar with this teaching.
Isn't it nice to associate with the great heroes of the Srimad Bhagavatam, like Dadichi? They asked him for a little donation. We need your bones. And he was like, why not? It's for Vishnu, I'd do it. I mean, that's inspiring, isn't it? And then you hear about Chitraketu, became a pure devotee, and he was totally absorbed in his kingdom. All he wanted was one son. That's all he asked for. And they warned him. Angira warned him. He said, it's going to be kind of a rough ride. And he's like, yeah, that happens to everybody. But it was really rough. His small child died when he was an infant, and he was mortified. It's a mortifying place, the material world. So how to get out of that? It's not that just, okay, there was a pandemic and now we're going to go back to normal. There is no normal. The normal in the material world, you don't want it. We don't want the normal in the material world. What was it before the pandemic? You just die after you try really hard to get a bunch of stuff together, and either by famine, earthquake, nuclear bomb. It is a kid family show, right? It all gets eventually decimated. So go for what's substantial. So one can live a balanced life and use the senses properly, but to inquire about the absolute truth. And that's what you're all doing, so thank you very much. See about the Srimad Bhagavatam outside. This is the biggest marathon we've ever done here at ISV. And we figured it would be good right after the pandemic because we're spring-loaded and ready to come out. And everyone got wealthy during the pandemic, which is a real dichotomy. You know, you'd think it would be the opposite, but we're all rich now, so let's invest in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And now we're going to have a stand-up kirtan. So please help us to move the asanas back over to the corner, and then we can stand up for the kirtan. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Oh, yeah. Yeah, let's figure it out. I heard they ripped our... Vishnupadaya, Krishna Preshtaya. Namo Vishnupadaya, Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale, Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Govinda Jaya Jaya, Gopala Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya. Nitai Gaur Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaur Hari Bo. Nitai Gaur Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Nitai Gaur Hari Bo. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Haribo, 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 Nitai go Haribo. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Stotarista Shishima Rabhai Charana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Sai Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahamsa Privrajagacharya Stotarista Shishima Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Gosai Maharaj Ki Jai. Ananta Tuti Vaishnavini Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sakho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Jamuna Devi Ganga Devi Ki Jai. Sambe Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glorious assembled devotees. All glorious assembled devotees. All glorious assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Haribo. Go for it.
Hare Krishna. Namaste Narashingaya. Namaste Narashingaya. Hiranyakashipurvaksha Hiranyakashipurvaksha Hito Narshinga Parato Narshinga Hito Narshinga Parato Narshinga Yato Yato Yami Tato Narshinga Yato Yato Yami Tato Narshinga Bahi Narshinga Hridaye Narshinga Bahi Narshinga Hridaye Narshinga O Narshinga Madhim Sharanam Prapadim Narshinga Madhim Sharanam Prapadim Pavakara Kamala Varenakam Adbhuta Shringam Lalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubingam Keshavadrita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Narahari Jaya Lakshmi Narasingha Jaya Narahari Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Bhakta Prahlad Oh Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada
नृसिंहदेव भगवान की, भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की, जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे।
That's funny. Hare Krishna. Well, looks like we're doing okay by Krishna's grace. And there's a lot of devotees that didn't do okay. It was a time of suffering, and it still is all over the world. So it's always like that, actually, except for sometimes it comes down harder, and we're able to see it in a more concentrated way. But we're all very lucky because even as we're moving into disaster zones, we always know where our shelter is, and that never changes. It doesn't lessen our distress when we see the devotees around us or the people in general suffering around the world. But that's what we signed up for when we came to the material world in the first place. And we have great opportunity to give people Krishna consciousness all over the world, and remind them that the distresses of this world come and go quite naturally. The only real shelter is Krishna. So we're gradually opening up here. It's taking a while to oil the wheels because devotees have not been fully engaged in their services, although it sounds like everyone's warming up quite quickly. We're also being careful, step by step, opening as we had half of the community, or at least half of the community that could come yesterday, came to the Saturday program, and then today we had the rest of us. And we'll go on like this, taking one step at a time, not taking anything for granted, and increasing our services to come up to full speed or ever-increasing speed, because there is no top speed, it's ever-increasing. And we thank everybody that during this pandemic time who did all kinds of backup services to make sure that everything went on, not the least of whom was His Grace Ramananda Saka Prabhu, who stayed right here in the temple. We had a huge year in book distribution in 2020, and we plan to do a repeat of this year. Maybe it's a three-peat or a four-peat. But we have good momentum. We didn't lose any momentum going into 2020 during the pandemic, so thank you for everybody who worked really hard to continue distributing books. And there were devotees coming in, doing cooking. Dainidhi Prabhu was driving up to Santa Rosa, getting milk from the Goshala, meeting them part way. And everything went on one way or another. So we're really looking forward to being as thoughtful as possible coming into the next phase of ISV. That is remembering how lucky we are, and also looking towards the future to continue expanding here as long as Krishna gives us the opportunity. I was thinking recently how we can have all the plans in the world, but we never know what's going to happen. So, I mean, that's obvious, but we have to remember that and take advantage of what we can do right now. Everything's important in service, and even if our plans get sidetracked from time to time, it doesn't matter, because the main point is that we go on serving. And Krishna notices that. And now let's see what other announcements there are. Hansapriya, what would you like us to bring to the world's attention? We have sponsors for the Sunday Feast? Really? Who are our sponsors tonight for the Sunday Feast? The names have not been revealed. However, we have at least how many? At least one sponsor for today, and there are open spots to sponsor more. Would you like to sponsor? Sachinanda Nimai Prabhu Ki Jai. Come on. What is it you like best here at ISV?
Hare Krishna. Do I need to get up? I feel it's like my birthday today. Everything, so I think 18 months, 18, I don't know how many months, feels like ages, but it's good to be back. And it's like the roots which were just drying up, now getting the fresh water again on time. So I think good for everyone to come together and getting association. I think that's the lesson learned. Association is the key.
Thank you very much, Sachinanda. We have a few more flowers back there, so feel free to sponsor. You can take more than one sponsor if you like. Sutramalika Prabhu, our resident pundit, has brought a guest with him. Would you like to introduce your guest?
Yes. This is my older son Shashank. He came to wish me happy Father's Day. So he lives here in Santa Clara now. So thank you.
Welcome. Any other announcements? We do have prasadam for everybody. It's out in front. We're going to be handing out boxes, and Avantika is going to announce things are really getting back to normal, huh?
Hare Krishna, today's prasadam was cooked by Ananda Vrindavan Mataji, Abai, Divyanand Prabhu, Gopi Priya Mataji, Hitesh Prabhu, Shriram Prabhu, Shama Bhakta Prabhu, Shama Karuna Mataji, and Vaishnavi. And today's cleaning was done by Hitesh Prabhu and Balaram.
Happy Father's Day. Okay, would anybody else like to make an announcement or a remark? Exclamation?
Hare Krishna.
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna Pradhanabhan, this is Aniruddha Nityadas. Actually, I just wanted to request all the devotees to pray for my uncle, my eldest uncle who passed away yesterday. His age was 81. His name is Pankaj Kanti Palit. So he passed away in Doylestown, Pennsylvania.
Pankaj Jangri Pandit?
Pankaj Kanti Palit.
Oh, I'm not going to get that. Pankaj Pandit. Sorry.
Pankaj Kanti Palit. You can, probably you can call
I'll
him
work on
Pankaj.
it next week. We'd like to offer a prayer to your uncle and to all the
Yes.
other and to all others in the world who are encountering this dread disease, the material life. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Madan Mohan, Shri Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev. If you so desire, please protect all the devotees in the world and give everyone else a chance to take to the path of Krishna consciousness. Thank you very much for considering our request. Gaur Premanande Haribol. Sharirad Vijaja Jodendriya Tahika Jibe Pele Vishaya Shakare Tarmadye Divayati Lobo Moy Sudhurmati Take Jeta Katita Shangshare Krishna Bododoya Moy Kori Bare Jihwajai Shaprashadana Dilobai Shayanamrita Pao Radha Krishna Gunagao Premedako Shri Chaitanya Nihitai Premedako Shri Chaitanya Nitai Mahaprasade Govinde Nam Brahmani Vaishnave Sapapunya Vatam Rajan Vishwaso Navijayat Hanirasyo Pajayate Prasana Chetaso Yashu Buddhi Parya Vatishtate Twayopa Bhukta Sraganda Vasulankar Charchita Uchista Bojino Dasas Davamayam Jayemahi Bhagavat Shri Mahaprashadaki Gora Premanande Nitai Gora Haribo 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 Nitai Gora Haribo. Looks like Nikul's going to lead a kirtan. Well, how can we help you? Hari Hari. When you put up the bhajan, is it possible to split the screen so at least we can see the devotees while we're... Because when they go away off the screen, then we get really morose. Is that possible? Doya Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nachariyar Mar Man Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nach Re Amar Man Nachariyar Marman Nachariyar Marman Nachariyar Marman Nachariyar Marman. Hey! Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nachariyar Marman Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nachariyar Marman Nachariyar Marman Nachariyar Marman Nachariyar Marman Nachariyar Marman. Hey! Doya Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nachariyar Marman Doya Tonai Hai Doya Tonai Hai He mon doya to na he mar ke prema de. He mon doya to na he mar ke prema de. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bodhi Nakshari Marman. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bodhi Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Hey! Doya Vitai Chaitanya Boli Nakshari Marman. Ore aparada dure jabe pabe premadan. Ore aparada dure jabe pabe premadan. Vichartonai hai, vichartonai hai. Oh, name appara vichartonai hai. Oh, name appara vichartonai hai. Goya Vitai Chaitanya Boli Nakshari Marman. Goya Vitai Chaitanya Boli Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Hey! Doya Vitai Chaitanya Boli Nakshari Marman. Takon Krishna name ruche habe guchi be bandan. Takon Krishna name ruche habe guchi be bandan. Anuragto habe, Anuragto habe. Hey, gotta get a taste. Krishna name Anuragto habe. Krishna name Anuragto habe. Doya Vitai Chaitanya Boli Nakshari Marman. Doya Vitai Chaitanya Boli Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Nakshari Marman. Hey! Doya Vitai Chaitanya Boli Nakshari Marman. Takon nanayase sapal habe jivera jivan. Takon nanayase sapal habe jivera jivan. Jivanto miche. Jivanto miche. Krishna rati vina jivanto miche. Krishna Rate Bina Jivanto Miche Hey Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli Nacharya Marman Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Boli Nacharya Marman Nacharya Marman Nacharya Marman Nacharya Marman Nacharya Marman Hey! Doya Mitai Chaitanya Boli Nacharya Marman Doya Mitai Chaitanya Boli Nacharya Marman Eshe Brindabane Radha Shamer Bhabe Darshan Eshe Brindabane Radha Shamer Bhabe Darshan Srila Prabhupada lived through the 1919 pandemic, through the Hong Kong flu, through all the heart attacks he had on the boat, came to America, underwent severe trouble, first year all alone in the snow, but he brought the holy names and the desire to spread Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission all over the world. Then a few people came to the park, started dancing, listening, distributing. They went out to different cities all over the world, back to India, every continent of the world. People began chanting. Before Prabhupada left, he told us, I've put up the framework, and now all of you can fill it in. And now great souls have come from all over the world, born here especially, to push on the Krishna conscious movement. And from right here in Silicon Valley, we've been given our own little palette to fill in with the beautiful, creative hearts of all the devotees. So we're celebrating this day of all the devotees coming back together with great resolve to take full shelter of the process of Krishna consciousness and to give it to every last person here in the Bay Area until everyone from every office building is singing Gaur Kripa Hole Hey Gaur Kripa Hole Hey Gaur Kripa Hole Hey Gaura Kripa Hole Hey Gaur Kripa Hole Hey Gaur Kripa Hole Hey Gaur Kripa Hole Hey Gaur Kripa Hole Hey Doyali Tai Chaitanya Boli Nacharya Marman Doyali Tai Chaitanya Boli Nacharya Marman Nacharya Marman Nacharya Marman Nacharya Marman Nacharya Marman Hey! Jaya Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Doyal Nitai Chaitanya Bole Nach Re Amarman Doya Thai Nachare Armarman Nachare Armarman Nachare Armarman Nachare Armarman. Hey! Nachre Amar Man Nachre Amar Man Go Premanande Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. We'll be here all night. Does anybody have any realizations that you want to share from your experience over the last year and a half? About up to the second. Where's the microphones? Ooh, they're giving the mic. Devotees online want to hear what you're saying. Just turn it on. Turn on the... Oh. Tech over here, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We were missing the energy for last 1.5 years, but today it feels close to what it was before pre-pandemic. So wonderful to come here.
Yeah, it's always going on in the spiritual world. And actually, I think it was a great opportunity for us to test ourselves, to see how we could keep the transcendental vibration going, even if we're packed away somewhere else. Did you all find it to be that way? Yeah. And how did everybody do? Pretty good, right? Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. And it's true, though, when we come back, it kind of feels like we went to sleep, came back, things are happening the way they were before. Anybody else want to share something? Says there's no eating today, so we have all night. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. I was just thinking in the beginning, when we were all quarantining, I was like, I didn't enjoy it at all, and I really wanted to end very quickly. And now that things are starting to get back to normal or back to how they used to be, it's in some ways I don't want the quarantine part to end because it gave me so much focus and redirection into understanding my priorities and also like my sadhana. And I was just thinking how the mind is so flickering and our desires constantly change. But today being here, I feel so grateful and appreciative of each and every single devotee in this room for making association really meaningful and so special.
Haribol! So first you thought it was weird, and then you liked it, and now you like it again coming out. It kind of reminds me of what we were talking about yesterday, how Lord Shiva said about devotees, that they don't really care what the environment is because they just go on with the same program. Narayana parak sarvena kutaschana bipyati swarga pavarga narakeshu apitulyarta darshina. It's equal to them, whatever the external circumstances, heaven, hell, because they're not afraid of the material existence because their only purpose is to go on serving. So it's a nice realization that you're taking away, that once you go in there to that unusual circumstance, you know what to do. And we adjust to it accordingly. You did it. Excellent. Yes, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. The other day when I left the temple, inside the temple, it feels like all your problems and all the material desires in your heart are cleansed. But when you leave the temple, immediately everything starts coming back. Oh, I have to finish this assignment by, tomorrow. I have to finish this assignment by next month. But when you're in the temple, you get the association of the devotees, and Krishna immediately, he cleanses, he removes all the problems. You feel like you're in the spiritual world when you're in the temple and doing Kirtan, listening to so I'm very grateful to be here, and yeah.
Haribo! There's a couple more. Abhay.
When you were talking about how we'll get everyone to chant and then you paused, I still remember that whenever you do that, you say everyone will chant and then you pause and then you start playing Kirtan. So when I heard that, like after a year, my head just snapped up and I picked up the Katha also. Yeah. After a year, it's still there in the rain. Yeah.
What is that? When we stop and then start again? Oh, and Nacharamaran. Right.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So during pandemic, we had opportunity to read and do all the programs through technology and all that. That was great. But what I felt is having personal association of devotees is extra special. That is the biggest realization I had.
Yeah. There's an extra element we miss. I noticed yesterday that a lot of things get done in the hallway here at ISV. Just walking from one end of the temple to another, a lot of ideas come up, deals are brokered. Who else? Yes.
I recently, after sitting in class yesterday and today, I was thinking about how over this last year, my real standard of my bhajan has been really tested because I've been all alone. Because anytime I was on Zoom, if I received a text message or if I received an email or something, it'd be very easy to think that, oh, it's okay, nobody will see. I'll just reply to this text message now. But this time, my phone buzzed a couple times in the middle of class today. And I was thinking, oh no, now I don't have time for that. It was automatic. And it was that automatic feeling. I was realizing that it was such a huge inspiration all of a sudden because I saw the standard that everyone else held themselves to, and that I too need to hold myself to a higher standard if I want to do anything significant with myself. So it was just a very big aha moment I kept having.
Well, you always think that anyway. But it's true too. And I think we got used to on Zoom culture noticing. It's amazing how, I was thinking how sensitive we are because you can just watch people even when they're muted and you can tell kind of what they're doing. I could always tell when two people are secret messaging back and forth because they have their hands are doing something and they got a little smile on their face. And I go, okay, who are they talking to? Oh, I get it. These two are talking. He's like, thanks a lot, guys. But we're very, I could see we're very sensitive. And also, if you just hear if two people are trying to talk at the same time and they just start, all you have to hear is half a syllable and you know who it is, who is coming in. Anyway, we're very adaptable living entities. Living entities can live in all different types of situations. Just get used to it. We think like this is the new normal, but the material world is so locked down anyway. This is just like a little bit of release from where we were a second ago, but actually the whole world is like that, being locked down in the material body. Can you imagine what it's like to actually give up the whole material conception, all the conditioning, the acquired prejudices that we've taken on for so many lifetimes, to be free from all that? Sarvapati vinirmuktam tapratvena nirmalam rishikena rishikesha sevanam. Just be free to serve with no other encumbrance. Everyone who thinks that's a good idea, please say Hare Krishna. Haribo. Okay, two more. 1, 2.
Hare Krishna. So yeah, when Manisha was talking about how she originally liked the didn't like the pandemic, but then she grew to like it, and now transitioning back to in-person, she feels a little sad about letting it go. I was just thinking about how us human beings are kind of built to recondition ourselves again and again and again, and it's kind of the gift of human life that we can always recondition ourselves and condition ourselves spiritually instead of materially, and it's a gift. And I was also thinking that it's so nice that we were on Zoom, but now we're transitioning back here. So people from all over the world were joining on Zoom. And before we just had Facebook Live and YouTube Live, but now that we also have Zoom, they can join on Zoom and watch our in-person programs and kind of participate, and we can see their faces, which we would have never been able to do if we didn't have the pandemic. But now it's like a nice hybrid mix, so they can join in.
Nice.
I was thinking that even though 1 year of pandemic felt like 10 years of suffering, but it's just so nice, same time coming back. It's now like seeing all the fruits, like kids have grown up so much. It just
what
gives
happened?
so much joy to the heart. And also so nice to see the small babies now back in the temple. And it's just like, everything is still going, that I is going to have a lot more kids and a lot more, so much Kirtan activities will happen, and they're all dancing and chanting. So I look forward to that vibration. So it's, even though we felt the separation, but we have so much more joy coming our way.
And now we have at least 1,000 more kids in our organization. Haribol. Sachindra Krishna Prabhu, Deepali, and the kids came here at the very, they were determined to come all the way from Illinois just to be part of ISV, and they came in here right during the pandemic, lock, stock, and barrel, right? In December. So we'd like to welcome the whole family for coming. A lot of times people come here because their job changes and they want to come. He changed his job. They changed everything, schools, everything, so that they could come and do service. Main purpose. So we're so deeply touched and happy to have you here. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Anything else? One last thing? Yes. Shamalangi.
So I wanted to say that whatever little service I got today, I felt extra grateful. I don't think I've ever felt like that. I was just praying that this continues, that things should remain, what I felt today.
Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Panchatattva, Shri Lakshmi, Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Shri Lakshmi Nrsingadev. If you so desire, please let us always be grateful for our service here. Take advantage, full advantage while we have the opportunity, and try to do something to please Srila Prabhupada and the Parampara. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this in part or in whole. Please say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Gaur Premanande. Vanchakalpaduruscha kripasindhavyevacha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Anantakoti Vaishnaviniki Jai.